and welcome to another episode of Boundless Body Radio. I'm your host, Casey Ruff, here with my co-host, Bethany Ruff.
Hello, hello.
Welcome to the show. You excited for this one?
I'm so excited.
This is going to be awesome. We have a great guest that we're going to introduce to you now. Vinnie Tortorich has been known as America's angriest trainer. He is a celebrity fitness trainer, speaker, prolific podcaster, and best-selling author of Fitness Confidential, Adventures in the Weight Loss Game. That book has 4.6 stars on Amazon. His podcast of the same name has released 1,770 episodes as of today. As a trainer with more than 30 years experience, he has trained Hollywood celebrities, children with weight issues, and literally everyone in between. In 2019, Vinnie also became a filmmaker, releasing the incredible film Fat, a documentary, which tells the insane story of why we think fat is bad for us. On January 1st, 2021, he released the follow-up film, Fat 2, which is an incredible sequel to the original. Vinnie, it's a pleasure to welcome you to the show.
Casey, Bethany, thanks for having me on. This is great. I want to just start out by saying I want to give you a double thanks because, and I'm not really sure how this works, but you're paying people to watch my movie, right? Or
Yes.
am I making that up?
No, when you released Fat, the first version, I started with all my clients. I told my clients, like, look, this isn't free. It's not on Prime yet. Pay for this and I will reimburse you. Just rent it. It's $4 and literally I'll pay you to watch this movie. And that kind of cascaded out and I started putting it out on social media. Same thing. Anybody who watches this movie, send me your email. I will Venmo you whatever it costs to rent because this is so important to watch that I'll pay you to do it, literally. And I feel the same way for Fat too. So your original went to Prime, and so that's free if you're a Prime member. But anybody, I'm telling you, anybody who listens to this, go to Amazon, rent the movie, send me your email so I can reimburse you to watch this movie. 100%.
That's amazing to me that anyone would ever, there was a few people who did similar things where they bought anywhere from 10 to some of them 50 and 100 copies, and they just handed them out to everyone in their office, everyone at work, you just on and on and on. But I've never seen anyone just take to Twitter and say, hey, if you watch this movie, I'm going to reimburse you. Has that cost you anything? Yeah. How does that work?
It's funny. I wish more people would take me up on it. Like literally, I wish more people would take me up on it. I've had several, but probably right around 10.
You know what's amazing about that? It's funny how the world works. I put out a PDF. I want to say it was about 5 years ago, maybe longer. It could be 6 years now. And the PDF is absolutely free. It's 26 pages long. It's on VinnieTortorich.com. Anyone can go get it right now. And it's been downloaded a lot. Like it's in the 300,000s now as far as downloads. And the reason I even wrote the PDF was after my book, Fitness Confidential, became a big deal. I realized that I didn't give anyone anything to go with. So I just did this and said, hey, maybe if you bought my book and you wanted to learn just a bit more, here it is, and it's free. I thought maybe I would hand out 1,000 copies of it, maybe 2,000. When it got to 100,000, I was like, holy crap. And then 200,000, I was like, gee, you got to be kidding me. And then my accountant mentioned to me, because, even if you had just charged $10 for it, that would be $3 million in your pocket. And that's one side of it. The other side is I'll be talking to people because I still do these consults during the week. People can call me and set up a half an hour or an hour-long meeting. And the first thing I'll say is, have you downloaded my PDF? And these are some big fans, people who have watched the movie, who they're in my Facebook group, they're on Twitter and everywhere. I'll say, have you downloaded the PDF? And they'll go, no, I didn't want to get into that. And I would say, why? And they would go, well, you download, then you got to buy something and the whole thing. And I'm like, it's free. It's completely free. And they go, really? There's no clickbait. It's like, no, it's not a sales funnel. It's just a free PDF. Just go get it. And they apologize to me. They go, oh my God. And I think the same thing may be happening to you, Casey, where people are going, well, it's got to be a trick. This guy is trying to trick me into something.
Sure.
Right?
Sure.
That's got to be it. I can't think of any other reason why anyone wouldn't do that.
Yeah, and the offer stands and will always stand. Watch the movie. Send me your email. I will Venmo you, 100%. I hope people take me up on it, honestly. You've been known as America's angriest trainer, but you don't really seem that angry. You seem pretty kind.
The way the backstory goes is, I wrote the book, and I was in Hollywood. I think you mentioned I was working with celebrities and the whole thing, but I went out of my way because I was in the celebrity business for the better part of 30 years. Before that I was in New Orleans. I've been doing this for 40 years, and lo and behold, I wrote the book, and I had no presence at all like if you Googled my name, it just didn't come up.
Hmm.
So I was like, everyone over at the big agencies, they said, look, we know who you are. But as it turns out, no one else in the world seems to know who you are. And I went, yeah, that's by design. I don't want anyone to be able to find me. They said, well, if you want to sell this book, you're going to have to go, you're going to have to do this. And I was like, all right. And I said, how do I get famous? They said, we don't know. The Kardashians figured it out. Jenna Marbles figured it out. You need to go figure it out. And I was like, Jenna Marbles? What? Who? What? So I went home and literally Googled Jenna Marbles. Do you even remember her?
No.
And what she did?
Yes, I do. Kind of a kooky, out there, outgoing, funny comedian.
Yeah, she was this girl at the time. She was one of the first girls to go viral on the internet. And basically her first video, or amongst her first videos, she was sitting on the edge of a bed and she was in a bikini and she was bummed out because she spent all this money on this fabulous bikini. And then she didn't have any money left to go to spring break because she spent all the money on the bikini. And that thing had like 8,000 or 8 million views or something. It was like she went viral. And then I looked up other viral videos, and besides Jenna Marbles, there was a guy who had like a model boat, remote control boat, and he had a squirrel duct taped to a set of skis, and the boat was pulling the squirrel around on skis. And that one had millions and millions of views. So I sat there and pondered this for like 5 minutes, and I said, okay, I don't have a bikini. And I certainly don't have squirrel skis. And if I did, I don't have a squirrel. And I don't have time to train a squirrel. I don't even know where do you even go to get a boat with a remote control? I was like, that was my thought pattern. How do I get a boat with a squirrel, And so after about 20 minutes of that, out of nowhere, my nephew called. And I'm talking to him, and he's a millennial. And I said, hey, Mike, how do you get famous on the internet? He goes, yeah, you and everybody else. You can't get famous. You're almost a 50-year-old guy. How do you get famous? And I was like, I don't know. I'm asking you. I mean, Jenna Marbles, there's a guy with a squirrel. I don't know. And he goes, why don't you do a podcast? And my exact words back to him was, what's a podcast? I never heard the term before. He goes, well, you did radio at one time back in New Orleans. As a matter of fact, I was a little kid. They told me that your show was really popular. I said, yeah, I'm really good at radio. I had a weekly show called Talking Fitness. He goes, yeah, just resurrect that on the computer. And I still did not get what he was saying. Can you imagine hearing the word podcast and you're told that it's a radio? No one really knew what it was. Now today, everybody has a podcast.
Sure.
Sure. And back then, no one knew what it was. There was no Apple CarPlay, no nothing. So I'm sitting there going, okay, I got to do a podcast. So overnight, I created a podcast. And the crazy thing was, my partner, Anna Vocino, said, you need a name for it. And I said, we'll call it America's Trainer Podcast. And she goes, great, America's Trainer. And then she Googled that. And there was a company called americatrainers.com. And they weren't even a fitness company. They trained people how to drive big rigs or drag lines or something, right? And So we couldn't use that. So my wife, she wasn't my wife at the time, Serena Scott Thomas, she said, why don't you call yourself America's angriest trainer? And I said, what does that even mean? I'm not angry. She goes, no, but you're angry at what happens to people because they're lied to. And I went, yeah, that's the ticket. I'm mad. And that's how I became America's angriest trainer. My wife just blurted it out and I went, okay.
That's great.
And that was that.
That's a great story. Let me see if I can rile you up a little bit. I got a little riled up here a few hours ago.
Oh, boy. Okay.
Here we go. I had a text come in from one of my friends, long-term friend, and he said, "Hey, I just listened to an episode that you did earlier that kind of talked about the carnivore diet. So, like, what kind of like fiber supplements are they using?" And I'm like, okay, rolling up my sleeves. I'm cracking my neck. I'm like, okay, I can call this guy. Like, we're gonna go to town on this. And he told me that like everything I was telling him was making sense about the fiber, and it might not be that good for you. You probably have been lied to. And he said, yeah, I've listened to your episode with Nina Teichels, and it makes a lot of sense. But there's so many other people that say that she's wrong. And so at the end of the day, I just kind of throw my hands up and just kind of go back to eating the way I was. And I think there's so many people out there that feel like they're broken, something's wrong with them because they're trying to follow the advice. The advice doesn't work for them, but clearly it looks like it's working for everybody else. So what the hell is wrong with them? It's insane.
Yeah, look, and we could take any portion of that. We could take fiber, we could talk about high fat, we could talk, people just get the wrong information. And, it's funny, you mentioned Nina, we've become, fast friends over the years. And we were on the phone last week, just, chatting it up. And because, and when Nina and I get on the phone, we don't talk about how cool we are. We basically get on the phone and lament why we're even doing this anymore, and at the end of the day, we go, okay, we've made some ground because look, back in 2011, I was loath to use the word ketogenic because everyone was going to say that's ketoacidosis.
Yep, that's right.
And you're killing people. And so I wouldn't even use the word back then. Keto was not a phrase. And, Nina and I talk about why do we do it? We don't actually make a living off of doing this. Look, I'm a businessman. I sell books. I sell movies. I own a vitamin company. I own a coffee company. I own NSNG Foods, food company. I don't need this. I don't need this fight. To be honest with you, the only reason I'm doing the fight is because I think it's worth it. I don't want to die knowing that I didn't do anything. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah. We feel the same way. Somebody asked us recently, like, oh, wow, you guys just got like 10,000 downloads on your show. You just started a few months ago. Like, are you making money off this? And I was like, making money? Excuse me? Like, this is a money pit. We spend a lot of time and money to put this show out because we feel so strongly that this story has to be told. So I love that. I'm so glad that you answered that and that your passion shines through on feeling that same way. That's great.
Well, let me add, everyone, like I can be over at my, I shoot competitive skeet and trap and all that. And I'll be over at my skeet range practicing and, everyone knows what I do for a living there and what have you. And, I had a preacher saunter up to me the other day. The guy is he's a reverend and he's a good guy, Don, he's a great shot. And he goes, hey man, you mind if I bend your ear for a minute? I was like, yeah, you got Don. I thought we were going to be talking about, hey, which shells did you use in that last competition? You seem to do better than me, something like that, which is a lie. He did beat me in that last competition. And, he goes, hey, you do that podcasting stuff, right? I said, yeah. He goes, and yeah, Max over there told me you're pretty popular podcast. I went, yeah, it's really popular. And the whole thing, he goes, yeah, we've been thinking about doing that, because of COVID and, taking it to the people with the podcast first. I went, yeah, Don, that's a great idea, man. You can talk to all your constituents and everyone who's paying attention to your brand of religion. You just talk to them right there on the podcast, man. That's a great idea. And then he got quiet for a second. He goes, but how do you monetize that? And I grabbed, like a father trying to tell his son not to use marijuana. I grabbed both of his arms and I looked at him square in the eyes and I said, Don, do not go into anything in social media thinking you're going to get rich. Because if you are not a Kardashian, it ain't going to happen.
And if you can't
Okay?
find the squirrel store to buy the squirrel and the skis, then
Yeah, if you don't know a guy with a squirrel, you're out. You know, yeah, and that's about the size of it. And he was like, really? And I went, yeah, really. Do not try. It's just not gonna work. And he goes, but do you make money? And I said, yeah, my podcast brings in thousands of dollars per month. He goes, really? I said, yeah, but let me explain something to you. Number one, I've been doing it for, as you said, I have almost 1,800 shows. I've been doing it for 9 years now. Number two, what I pay for in bandwidth, when your podcast gets really big, what you pay for in bandwidth, what you pay for in staff, there's Gina Grad, there's Anna Vocino, there's Debbie Tortorich, there's my daughter, Tallulah, who gets a paycheck, Scott Mulvaney. I'm just naming the people, Bill Meadows. The checks I write every month, I'm always hoping to cover with the thousands of dollars that I make. Yep. I'm hoping to cover every month. And some months I cover very easily. And when I do, I save all the extra money because they're lean months. You get to those summer months when people, well, this past summer was great. No one was traveling. But you get to the lean months in the summer and you don't have the numbers and the advertisers don't want to pay you what they paid you in the winter. You better have some, speaking of squirrels, you better have stored a few nuts or you're coming out of pocket.
Yep.
Big time.
Yep.
So, and you guys, it seems like you're pretty new at podcasting. I think you mentioned you've done, you're at 10,000 downloads.
Yep.
Wait till you get up there. Just wait a few months, a few years and whatever. And you're going to sit there and go, you're going to look over at Bethany and go, man, we're bringing in a lot of money, but we're losing more money than we're
for sure.
It's a crazy thing. So do not, sure. I'm warning everyone out there, do not do this to make a dime.
Yeah, 100%. 100% agree.
It seems like the common theme, the bridge between the buddy that Casey talked to that was asking for some nutrition advice and the friend of yours that wanted to start that podcast. Everybody wants to skip the work. Everybody doesn't want to put in the time and the uncomfortable having to switch what they're eating or switch what they're doing and actually apply themselves to something that they're passionate about. It's so crazy.
Bethany, a truer statement has never been uttered. And I'll tell you another story because I tend to tell a lot of stories. Sorry, guys.
That's why we brought you on.
When the way it happened for me was my book, became a big deal. After we started the podcast, I held the book for about a year. At the time, we were probably getting about 100,000 downloads a month on 3 shows per week. And maybe more than that, maybe 150. So we knew we had a customer base. And I finally put the book out. And the book went to the top of Amazon in 2 seconds. It went to the top of Audible even faster. And they said, don't even expect to sell Audible copies. Boy, did we sell Audible copies. Wow. And we sold a lot of them. And so we kind of went to the top of everything and we were really proud. And that book started bringing in a lot of money. And the thing about Amazon and places like Audible, it's a meritocracy. They don't care who you are. If you're selling books, they're going to say to other people, hey, if you like that book, you may like this book. And then that kind of keeps your book at the top. And the book ended up making me some money. And I had never had, look, I was a trainer. I think you guys are in the gym business too. I was a trainer, man. You just don't get rich off of being a trainer.
Nope.
If you work yourself really hard, you can scratch and claw your way right to the middle. And that's about it. And, I was that guy. I would save my pennies and do everything responsibly. But for the first time in my life, I had this amount of cash. I had more cash. I didn't know what to do with money. I really didn't. I just threw it all in a savings account. And every week or so I would go to the bank and go, can you show me what's in my savings account? I couldn't believe that I had money. I would leave there going, I have money. And I would leave there very nervously because I was so scared now of losing that money. right? It's like, I'm going to do something stupid because I was thinking about buying stuff. I was like, I bet I can go get myself a brand new Corvette or, or a used Ferrari or something. I was like thinking of stuff to waste the money on. Right. And, and then at some point I thought again and I went, you know what? I could, I can use this money to maybe make more money. And that was an even dumber proposition. It was like, wait a minute, I'm not even a businessman. How can I make money to go make money? It's like I don't know what to do. So I got in touch with my buddy, who always worked as like he was always like a medium. He was like he was at Playboy for years, and he was like a VP of international sales. He understood business. And I went to him. His name is Andy Schreiber. And I said, Andy, I want to start a vitamin company with one vitamin. I want to make the best multivitamin in the world. And everyone I spoke to said, do not do that. You're going to lose your pants. And I said, you know what? If I don't do this, I'm going to go buy a Ferrari or a Corvette, and then I won't have anything anyway. So I might as well at least take a chance on something that might make me money, or I'm going to lose this money. I know that all sounds counterintuitive, right? But that's what I did. And I started purevitaminclub.com. And that was the first time in my life that I had ever done anything successful.
Wow.
To that level, besides getting people to lose weight. I was always good at that, but that doesn't make you money.
That's right.
And once I had that money coming in, it freed me up to do one thing. By the way, I never bought a Ferrari, nor will I ever. Turns out I don't want a Ferrari. But what I figured out was I am now making money somewhere else. I can do this internet thing with complete autonomy. I can tell the truth. I don't have to worry about being canceled. I don't have to worry about anything, right? Because I have an income coming in from over here. I don't have to lie to people and tell them, oh, go buy this product to lose weight.
Yep.
Right. I never have to do that in this space. If that makes any kind of sense.
Makes 100% sense. It's exactly how we're running our business and what we've done for years and years.
Yeah. And it's the way to do it. Tell me a little bit about you guys. How did you get rolling?
Well, so we were both working for the same company. We have a combined 22 years of experience as trainers, and we were fortunate that we were able to ride that line that you were talking about. We made careers out of it. We could do it. We were never rich, but we were able to do it. And 2020 happened, and we had to kind of shut down. And we just realized pretty soon into the shutdown that this is going to go on for much longer, and people's habits are fundamentally going to change, and we better be flexible and pivot around this so that we can come out on top. And so, after weeks and weeks of debating, we decided to start our own company, and we, train our people, whoever wants to train with us, outside or in their homes or, in safe places. We built out our basement into a little training gym because we had savings enough to be able to do that. And now we have a little bit more time, and I can, we can start this podcast. We can have conversations with you. We can share this message with the world, and same, we can tell the truth. We don't have a boss. We don't have sponsors. We're making plenty just working with our people. Now let's go give back and talk to you. This is amazing.
It's insane the amount of abundance that just flows into your life when you just put a little bit of something that you're passionate about out there.
Yeah, it truly is. And look, I did it with just pure intentions of selling a book. I never, thought that any of this, I don't know how I became part of the center of this whole low carb thing. None of this was planned out. And people ask me about that all the time. It's like, did you know what you were doing? How did you, it's like, no, I was just being real for a minute. And here's what came up. Here's what happened, and it seems like you guys are doing exactly the same thing, right?
Yeah, we're trying. It's great. And part of the thing that shot you out of the stratosphere, obviously the book was amazing, and you've put in the thousands and thousands of hours to be really good at something, but you also released that movie, and that is an incredible movie. And I wanted to kind of talk about the process of, when you decided that we needed to have a movie that told that story, and why somebody scrolling through health documentaries, why they might pass up like What the Health or, fat, sick, and go drink, celery juice or some whatever. Like, why would they watch a movie that is, bright yellow fat? Why would they choose that?
Well, that's a tough question to answer. To answer that, as you could tell, I don't give short answers. So, when I would watch movies like Fat, Sick, and Nearly Dead, the one you just mentioned, I think that was it. Is that the one where the guy? The whole thing, I always smell rats. When something doesn't feel right to me, I smell it right away. Right. And in that movie, the guy goes at the beginning, I don't know what I'm watching. Right. As a matter of fact, it was put up by the same company that put my movie out, I think. I think it was Gravitas Ventures. And it was several years ago when I watched it, but I'm going to paraphrase. The guy says, the guy goes, "Hey, I'm from down under, like New Zealand or Australia or somewhere like that. And I decided that I needed to fix myself. So I was going to start juicing. And so far I'm going, okay, I'm in, I'm listening, I'm paying attention." And he goes, and what I decided to do is juice my way across America. Now I smell a rat. Right. I mean, you're doing what? You're going to drive across America with a blender? It's okay, I guess. I'll keep playing along for a second. Not really sure where this is headed, but okay. And he goes, "Yeah, I start juicing my way across America, and I got the juicer in my trunk." I'm saying that correctly, right?
I think
Right,
so.
Casey?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. And the guy goes, yeah, I'm in a truck stop one day, and I'm talking to a trucker, and they showed a video of him talking to the trucker, and nothing came from the trucker conversation. And I'm sitting there going, why did he just talk to a random trucker about nothing? He just had a nothing conversation. This is not making sense. First off, why is he going across America and juicing? What's he learning? Number two, why is he talking to a trucker? And now my mind is really reeling, right? And then he goes, "Oh, yeah. So I juiced my way across America, and that was the end of my movie. And I came back to Australia, and I was back at my home. And then one day, my phone rang. It was someone from the United States. So I picked up, and it was the trucker I met in the truck stop." And I'm like, okay, really? Really, bro Namath? What are we doing here? Really, you want me to believe that some trucker just hung on to your number because you had a blender in your trunk, and he called you in Australia and said he was ready. None of it makes sense.
Poor guy would have to pull off the road every 2 hours to buy ingredients to make its next shake.
Well, yeah, that's part of it, but the other thing is not only that, you're sitting there going, this is contrived, it's all made up, it's not real. What are we doing here? Why are we lying about this? Right? Why is this lie happening? Does that make sense? Am I making sense? It's like
Yeah.
the whole thing was staged. And then next thing you know, this Australian gets together with this trucker, and he stops trucking because he got way too healthy and opened a juice bar. That's how it ends. Does anyone find that contrived besides me? And when you watch a movie like What the Health, and the guy at the beginning, the real hippie dude, his name is Kip, and Kip goes, "I was like sitting around one day, and I said to myself, I wonder what's like the healthiest diet like a human could be on, like." And someone said the word, I think it was like vegan or something. And I was like, what's this vegan thing? Okay, Kip, guess what? You also did a movie before that called Cowspiracy, when all you talked about was being a vegan and we shouldn't eat cattle. Now, all of a sudden, you're confused about veganism at the beginning of your next movie? Am I supposed to believe? So, when the movies, they start off with lies, and the lie just continues throughout the whole movie. Just lie after lie after lie. It drives me crazy. So when you say you have a friend who says, "Where am I supposed to get my fiber?" We were never meant to have fiber. I haven't had fiber in years, other than eating broccoli, cauliflower, or Brussels sprouts, or the occasional salad. Because my wife, every now and then, she goes, "Oh, I want something crunchy. We'll have a lettuce salad." We do not regularly eat fiber in this house, right? Why is I'm never blocked up. I'm never irregular. I'm the most regular guy I know. I know my wife is regular. She goes in. You can almost set a clock by when she goes to the bathroom.
Mm.
And we don't sit here eating fiber on top of fiber.
Yeah, neither do we.
So it's all lies.
Tell us some of the more shocking parts about those lies that made it into your film. So let's go to Seventh-day Adventists. We had Dr. Ted Naiman on our show, and he grew up Seventh-day Adventist, so he gave us a little bit of insight on this. But I think this is so shocking for most people to hear the first time. Tell us the connection between diet and vegetables and the Seventh-day Adventists.
Yeah, I love telling the story. I think every time I do a podcast, someone else's show, I tell the story. But it's back in the 1800s, the Seventh-day Adventists, there was all these higher ups in the church, right? And this woman, Ellen G. White, was one of the people, one of the selected few in the church. And she woke up one morning and said she had a premonition, or she was visited by God. God came to her the night before. Now, in 2021, if you wake up, Casey, and tell Bethany, "God came to me in my sleep," Bethany would be on the phone looking for help. Right?
This is
Like
true.
my husband, right? I think he had a seizure. Maybe he bumped his head when he went to the bathroom. I don't know, but he needs to be checked out. We need to do some brain scans. But in 1860, when someone wakes up and says, "God came to me in my sleep," and you're part of some whacked out religious group, you simply go, "Oh, really? What did God have to say?" Right? That's the difference. So she said, God said that, well, we shouldn't eat anything with a face. And there started modern day veganism. All, just in one swoop, one fell swoop, modern day veganism.
Wow.
It's crazy.
That's crazy.
The whole thing is crazy.
And what was the reason that was continued, especially by John Harvey Kellogg?
Well, it couldn't be, it couldn't actually take hold. It was a thought back then, but anyone who tried to do that would die because there were no exogenous vitamins back then, right? So you couldn't just do it. But then, one of the other problems with the Seventh-day Adventists was they didn't believe in premarital sex. They didn't believe in sex for any other reason than to procreate. So unless you were trying to make a baby, you should not even sleep in the same room with your wife, right? By the way, anyone who's listening to this, this is not fiction. I'm not making this up. They try to downplay it in today's world because everyone realizes that it's really not doable. Anyway, so that's the beginning of that, right? That you're not supposed to have sex, and masturbation is the highest form of, like, you're going to hell if you even mention masturbation or do anything to touch yourself. You're in violation. You're in deep violation of the church. So they figured out that when guys eat more meat, they feel more virile. Like you feel, meat makes you feel good. And they also figured out that when you didn't eat meat, you got weak. So they started telling all their parishioners, "Hey, remember when Ellen over there was telling everyone, don't eat anything with a face?" That kind of coincides with our "we don't want people jerking off" problem. So why don't we just tell everyone? And by the way, I know it sounds like I'm making this up and I'm making light of it. Folks, I'm not.
We have used this quote before. We used it with Nina. It's a Tom Clancy quote that says, the only difference between fiction and nonfiction is that fiction has to make sense.
Yeah.
It has to be a true story. You can't make this up.
Yeah, no, you can't. I'm not that good. I'm just not. I'm not that good of a storyteller. This is all real. I know people are sitting there going, "Oh, come on, who's this guy? What's he talking?" No, folks. This is real stuff.
It's crazy.
So one thing leads to another, and John Kellogg, Dr. Kellogg, he came up with dextrinization, pulling sugar from grain products and what have you, and he came up with this flake. And he was like, "Hey, if we could just get people to eat this flake, this meal, then and fill yourself up on this, you're not going to want to ever jerk off or whatever." I thought they used the word jerk off, but they used some version of that, I'm sure. And that's how Kellogg's cornflakes is how Post cereal got started. And I could go into Post and talk about Postum and how that came about.
That's so crazy.
Yeah. All these stories are so fantastical. You'll sit around and go, "Oh, come on!" But I'm telling you, they're all true. You could go look any of this stuff up. It's all real.
Wow.
Very real.
You did a great job with the scenes, fast forwarding quite a bit, the scenes that showed like the 80s and 90s and, the aerobics classes. And Bethany pulled up a video yesterday, the Buttmaster VHS tapes.
Oh, Buns of Steel. I did just an unapologetic amount of hours of burning those cheeseburgers is the specific line that he would use.
You talk about the food pyramid and 6 to 11 servings of bread, rice, and pasta every single day is the recommendation. Like, how did we get to that point?
That's anyone's guess. I've been trying to figure that out for years. I added it up, the number of servings they want you to have per day. I did that in Fat One, and there was so many servings that I couldn't remember it. I had to jot it down. I just held a piece of paper in front of me on camera and read it off. And then I said at the end of it, "Great, now we know how many servings. Now we have to figure out what a serving is." Because the government does have a serving, but no one knows what it is. You could go look it up. You won't readily find it on Google, right? It's in the annals of somewhere in the country, but we don't know where that is, right?
Wow.
So it's all just very vague. And if you go back and look at the McGovern Committee study, I mean, we did a lot of that on the show, right? In Fat One. At the end, you could see where they just kind of threw their hands up and said, "I don't know, pick one." It's literally what they did. They went, "I don't know, let's just pick one. We got to move on. We spent too much time on this."
Wow.
Just pick one. "Oh, no meat. Okay, that sounds good. Moving on." And that was it.
That's ridiculous. It's so insane. I'm so glad you obviously included Nina. She's awesome in the movie. You also included Dave Feldman, which I followed his work for a very long time. I think it's really interesting that those people did not start out in the nutrition world or the medical world. You're talking to an engineer and you're talking to a journalist. And I think that brings a lot of clout to the argument that like, this isn't just the same American Heart Association, ADA, whoever you want to name, U.S. government. These are people that think and ask questions, and they have come to some very interesting and very uncomfortable conclusions if you've been, kind of in this health world.
Yeah, Nina in particular, because her father was a scientist and she understood science and how science works. And what people need to know about Nina was that she was vegetarian/vegan. And when she started researching this, a lot of people, research themselves correct. Well, she started researching it and realized that she was, what she was seeing did not jive with what she wanted to find out. And you got to give that woman a lot of credit because she wanted the outcome to be vegan, right? That vegan is the best way to go. but she could not deny what she was looking at. And coming from a science background, she just simply said, I cannot deny this, and more power to her for sticking to her guns and doing what she thought was right.
Yep, absolutely. Vinny, I couldn't even get through the intro as we were bringing her on. I got emotional. I started crying because of all the work that she'd done, how long we'd followed her and her work and used it with our clients. Like that was tough for me to get through the intro. We were so grateful for her and for the work of all these people that are out there doing it. And for you that's making the movie, we cannot talk about your first movie without talking about a scene. And if you've seen it, you know what scene I'm talking about. And Vinny, you probably know what scene I'm talking about. That amputation, that's hard to watch. That is very, very hard to watch. The Fetkeys have done so much wonderful work. And the interesting thing is you got them on camera in the interview saying, like, the sound of an amputation, you'll never be able to unhear. And if I just tell somebody to lower their sugar and carbohydrates in the diet, they see nearly immediate effects. Yet here I am lopping off people's feet. Like that is crazy. What made you decide to include that in the movie?
Well, I was trying to figure out, I wanted to show another storyline. And, the first person that came to mind was Tim Knox. And, Tim used to come on my show. The first 30 or 40 shows, he would come on the show. And there's some really great shows back there. And Tim always made the show great and on and on and on. And I was like, yeah, I'm going to show this. And I'm going to show Tim and the whole thing. And because he was getting a lot of press also, same, kind of like Gary was. But, Tim was put on trial twice for telling a mother on Twitter that it would be okay if her kid, after the kid came off of the mother's milk, that it was okay for the kid to eat meat and vegetables. He was put on trial for that in South Africa, to the point where Tim, most people don't know this. He used to have a podcast back then. His people would call me and say, would you mind doing Tim's podcast for him? Because he can't do it right now. He's got to go do this. Right.
Wow.
It was weird. I was doing Tim's podcast just to cover for him.
Wow.
And I thought about using that, but I said, you know what? That story's been told a lot. And all this stuff was coming out around that time about Gary Fetke. And I started following Gary's story and I was talking to him, and he had been on my podcast a few times, and he was just a good guy and very earnest. And again, truth stranger than fiction. You can't make this stuff up. You just can't. And, I'm sitting there going, who do I use? Do I go with Tim Knox? Do I go with Gary? And Gary's story was just so wacky. And one of the problems I had with Gary's story was I said, no one's going to ever believe this. They're not, and when, people have written to me and said, come on, really? Did they take his medical license away? Yes, they did. He's a medical doctor. He was an orthopedist his job was to chop limbs off on people who were type 2 diabetic. And when he started figuring out that you can get these limbs to stop abscessing and completely turn these people around, and they could keep their legs and feet and toes and everything else, he started doing that, and he was cutting less and educating more. And they brought him up on charges, and they took his medical license away for saving people's limbs. And they literally called him in and said, listen, your job is not to be some kind of Florence Nightingale here. You go chop limbs off and keep your mouth shut. Right. But he couldn't. I mean, how can you? Hey, sir, who I can save your life if you just listen to me. I'm just going to go ahead and chop your limbs off and tell you there's no other choice for you. Can you imagine?
No.
It makes no sense. It makes no sense.
I asked Nina when we had her on last week, do they know better? Is it all about money? What's your opinion?
Wow. Is it all about money? I think it's all, I think money ends up getting dragged into it because it's all about convenience. What's the cheapest and easiest way to take care of this person? Look, the medical community is already taxed. They already can't stay ahead of the curve, right? And when you go, well, is it all about money? Is it? Yeah, money plays into it in a weird sort of way, right? If you get right back to it, yeah, it's about money. Um, but I don't think that tells the whole story. It's not just the hospitals with the money. It's not, it's big food, it's big drug, it's all these, if you cure people from type 2 diabetes, there goes the whole metformin industry, right? There goes a big chunk of billions of dollars in the drug industry, right? If you get rid of, if you're doing that and people aren't eating wheat and sugar anymore, there goes the wheat and sugar industry. So it's not just about medicine, it's about everything else that plays into medicine. It's the drug companies, it's the food companies, it is medicine, and nobody wants to lose their gig. And doing this allows these people to keep doing what they're doing. Bottom line.
So broken.
Mm. Well,
Yeah.
we mentioned one Gary. You included another Gary, also a journalist, Gary Talbs, who has just been a warrior in this field also. I'll sometimes bring my guests on and just tell them, like, screw the science, throw the science out. There's no science about any of this. We're all wrong. Forget about it. Just why would you not watch your documentary and see all of these people who are super fit, including yourself? And Gary, like, was already fit on the first movie. And in your follow-up, he's like even more jacked than he was the first time. Like, look at your Ben Bickmans and your Gary Talbses and all of these people in this field, and they're all thriving, kicking ass, tons of energy. They're caring and kind, and they share their time and information and knowledge with people. Like, why? Let me just reverse engineer this, figure out what you guys do, and I'm just going to do the same thing. Why would I not want to live that lifestyle?
You're right. When you look at a Ben Bickman or Gary Talbs or any of these guys, and by the way, Gary and I talk a lot too. I just had him on the show again. I'm not sure if I put it out yet or not. I never know when the shows go out, but I interviewed Gary a few weeks ago, and yeah, you start talking to these guys, and we're just sitting there going, it sucks to be us because we're rebel rousers, and we're disruptors in a weird sort of way, and we get yelled at and we get told that we're killing people and just on and on and on. And just like the conversations I've had with Nina, sometimes you sit around and go, why am I doing this? What's in it for me? And I'm not really sure all the time.
Mm. Yeah. When we interviewed her, it was the first time that I have heard in her content, her say, like, she sounded, I won't say discouraged, but she sounded like a little bummed. Like, I'm doing this charity, it's catching on and people are donating and that's great. But like, I'm so disappointed that it's not moving the ball forward. And you could just kind of pick up on it in her voice. And it's so sad because it's so important and so helpful. And we need those voices. But like, if we can't make any progress, it would be very discouraging. It's hard.
I always tell Nina, when we have private conversations and what have you, I'm always saying to her, look, years ago, I wouldn't even use the word keto in social media because people would say, oh, ketoacidosis, you're killing people. Now keto is ubiquitous. It's on every brand, people, oh, this is keto, that's keto, even when it's not keto, so I think in a weird way, is coming around. You hear low carb more often, even though people say, oh, you can't sustain it or you can't do this, which is BS. I mean, I've been sustaining it personally for years, more than 15 years at this point, well, maybe not that long. And before that, I would go on it for months and months at a time, and just go off. And you guys might not know this. I used to do these ultra distance bike races. And whenever I was doing a race, I would have more sugar because I was on a bike for 48 hours nonstop, morning, noon, night for 2 days. So in those situations, of course, I would take in some sugar. But that's why I started NSNG food. I came up with food sources that you don't need sugar to do, right? You could just do it without sugar. So, that's why, and that's it.
Mm.
I feel like people have such almost an emotional attachment to the way that they're eating, and especially like carbohydrates and sugar, because I mean, even knowing what you know, you would acknowledge that there is a place for that nutrient, but it's when you're, doing crazy endurance and you're taxing your body. But it's the most common question I feel like we get when someone has interest in low carb or keto or something like that is, okay, sounds great. But then, yeah, so then when do I have like the bread? So like, yeah, when do I cycle carbohydrates back in? It's almost like they can't let it go.
Yeah, because it's been part of their life for so long, and look, the big one I always seem to get is, well, I can never have dessert again. No, I never said that. You know, if you want to have dessert one day, go have dessert. Just don't think you have to work it in every day.
Right. Have a great
No.
one. Have a great dessert that you love, something that you really enjoy, grandma's cookies or birthday cake on your birthday. And then don't do a sleeve of Oreos every afternoon.
Yeah, it makes a big difference not to. And I don't understand how and why people do do what they do or why they do it. Look, I do these consults. I think I mentioned that earlier. And at the beginning of the consults, people will say to me, "Hey man, I'm so sick of this. I'm so tired of it. I will do anything you tell me to do. Just anything. Just tell me what to do. I will do it." And I'll start telling them what to do. And they'll go, "Wait a minute. What do you mean I can't have diet soft drinks? I love diet soft drinks." I said, "Well, you can't." "But I love diet soft drinks." "Well, you can't have them." "But I want my diet soft drinks." It's like, well, wait, hang on. A few minutes ago, you said you would do anything I told you to do. I'm not even up to the anything part yet. I'm just asking you to drop a carcinogen.
That's
You
crazy.
know?
Yeah, we get asked all the time advice, and one of my favorite questions, we've talked about this on the show, but one of my favorite questions to ask is, do you want things to be really simple, or would you like them to be like more complicated and complex? And they always go, "Oh, simple. It has to be really simple. I'm so busy already, and I don't want to make this too complicated." And I'll say like 2 or 3 sentences to them of the things that I would try to do, and I would just do that. And they go, "Oh, but what about this fat burner stuff?" I'm like, "Well, if you want to go buy that, you can." "Oh, well, what about this like workout program I can buy from this celebrity trainer?" And it's like, you can go do that too if you want. If you want to make this more complicated, you can. But the best part about this way of life is the simplicity. It's so easy. And so I wanted to take this opportunity that we have you, and you've been training for a very long time. I want you to leave the listener with the top 3 things that you might tell somebody. And I want it to go in order of your third, your second, and your first number 1 simple tip that somebody could implement and apply into their life and see a benefit. If they could do 3 things, what would be the third? If they could only do 2, what would be the second? And if they could only do 1 thing, what would you recommend to them?
Well, I don't know if I would put these in any particular order, although I think you're asking me to do that. But
That's
I
fair.
think most people can extrapolate and do what they want anyway, because that's what people do anyway. They listen and take what they want. One, I would say, look, start with something simple. If it tastes sweet, do not put it in your mouth. I don't care if it's stevia, erythritol, allulose, monk fruit, anything. If it's sweet, don't put it in your mouth. Start with that. Get used to not having that sweet taste in your mouth. You will get used to that long before you know it. And so that's number 1. Get used to not having sweet in your mouth. Number 2, realize that you don't have to have, and the first 2 are diet related, that fiber and grains are not a thing. If you can conquer the first with sugar, you're still getting sugar from bread and everywhere else. It just doesn't taste like sugar. Now it's time to pull on your big boy panties and do that. Just cut the grains out. And then if you're able to pull those 2 things off, the third one is relatively easy. Exercise every day. And that can mean as simple, look, you might be 400. I talk to people who are 600 pounds regularly. And for them to exercise, that literally may be walking out the front door, walking to the mailbox, touching it, and coming back in. I am not being funny right now. That might be the workout. Other people might be able to walk down the block and back. Some people might be able to walk a mile, 2 or 3 miles. But I tell people, if all you could do is open the front door, walk a few steps, touch the mailbox, and make it back to your couch, that is your exercise. Go to your calendar and mark that on your calendar for your exercise that day. Except tomorrow, I want you to walk one step past that mailbox.
Mm.
And the next day, I want you to walk one step past that. Just start getting in the I don't care what it is. Exercises like wiping your ass and brushing your teeth. You don't have to do them, but it's a good idea if you did.
That's fantastic. That is great advice. And I think the coolest part about that advice is if you do the first two things, you will be way more like willing to do the third thing because it will feel good. You'll want to do it. You'll want to move more. It's a joy to exercise. It's not this terrible thing that people make it out to be. But once you start eating, you will want to move more, and that will start building a positive spiral that can really, really help people. I love your answer. That's really great advice. The movies you made are tremendous. And again, we will pay anybody to watch them. Anybody can send me their information. I will be happy to pay for them to rent this movie because they are so important and so critical. And we're so grateful for you and your time today and all of your work. Where would you like people to go to find your great companies, your supplement companies, and all the information about you and what you do?
Yeah, you could just go to Vinnie Tortorich, Tortorich, VinnieTortorich.com. Everything is there. You can see the podcast. They're all free. Keep them up for free. There's almost 1,800 of them. The book, you'll see the book Fitness Confidential. If you want to purchase that, is there. Or you could just go to Amazon and do any of that. The first movie is around the world. It's on, I think, 70 different VODs around the world. Amazon Prime, if you have that, you can watch it for free. It's very inexpensive everywhere else because you can rent it for like $2-3, I guess.
Yep, and it's free when we're covering it.
Yeah, and if you want to really get it free, just send Casey your receipt. He'll pop you a couple of bucks. And that's how you find that. And you'll see my vitamin company, purevitaminclub.com. The coffee company is purecoffeeclub.com. It's all on my site. And the thing that's been taking the world by storm is NSNG foods, no sugars, no grains foods. And we have the ultra fat there that everyone seems to love. Yeah. Yeah.
Wow, that's awesome.
So go check it out.
Okay.
And is your PDF that you were referring to earlier, is that also on your website?
Yeah, it'll say what is NSNG, and it's on my website. And just go there. And you just sign up, and it's free.
Awesome.
Just go get it.
You have said the free word so many times. Guys, there's no excuses. You are giving away a lot of cool free stuff, and there's some great products that you do that people can pay for, so we love that. Vinnie, again, thank you so very much for you and your work and for appearing on Boundless Body Radio with us today.
Casey, Bethany, thanks for having me on.
It was our pleasure. And this has been another episode of Boundless Body.